Well, good morning, folks. This is Billy Trout, Manager of Taxpayer Education for the Tennessee Department of Revenue. On behalf of our Commissioner, David Gergano, and our staff at Taxpayer Services, we welcome you to today's presentation on sales tax and e-commerce, a real hot topic here that we get quite a few questions about. And today we've got some good folks with us. We have our lovely hostess, Miss Katie Julian, here today. We also have a special guest, Mr. Thomas. And Thomas, pronounce your last name because I'm going to mess it up. Go ahead and get it out there.
My last name, I'm Thomas Meisenthal. I'm a tax audit supervisor with the audit division.
Okay, thank you for that. We want to make sure that's correct. So, Thomas, welcome and thank you for joining us today. We also have Stephanie Bailey on our training staff joining us today, and she'll be monitoring your questions in our chat room, as well as Mr. Dan Vinson, our Assistant Director in Taxpayer Services. We will do our very best to answer your questions today, but there's quite a few of you, so there's more of you than there are us. We probably will not get to every question, but we'll do our very best. We also have some of the questions that you guys had submitted ahead of time. So we'll do our best to try to address a few of those as well. But when we wrap this thing up, you'll know how to get answers to all your questions, even if we don't touch on what you needed to know today, particularly. So we'll get you taken care of. So with that, let me turn that over to Miss Katie. Katie, take it away and give us some information and go ahead and get going. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Billy, and thanks, Thomas, for being our subject matter expert today. We always love having a guest from our audit division with us to help with these webinars. So just again, to call some stuff to your attention before we start, if you don't hear me right now, then you don't hear me and you can't hear what I'm saying, but we do have some information here about if you have audio or other technical difficulties. If for some reason you cannot resolve any of your technical difficulties, we will have a presentation, a recording of it, like Billy said, on our website, posted probably tomorrow. And then you can see here at the bottom, we'll give you this again, revenue.support@tn.gov if you've got specific questions that don't get answered, or that's always a good way to get in touch with us. And of course, you see our phone number there as well. But we'll go ahead and get started. Do throw your questions into the chat. Those go to just the panelists, just to protect privacy of our attendees. But we will try to answer as many of those as we can and get to, again, like Billy said, some of the questions that you submitted in your registration forms. So we got a lot of people joining us today from all over the country, from several other countries, actually, as well, in addition to the United States. So this is a topic that is very hot, e-commerce. It's a platform that I think we have all seen grow exponentially very recently, and it's has a lot of tax implications. So, what is e-commerce? Basically, it's online activity that involves the buying and selling of products and services. So, anything that is bought and sold online, we've probably all been participating in just a little bit of that over the last few days, right? With Cyber Monday was yesterday. Um, Today, I just learned this on the news this morning, is Travel Tuesday. I wasn't aware that there was such a thing, so now I know. But for Tennessee tax purposes, online businesses and e-commerce are pretty much treated the same as what if you were selling from a storefront. There are just some special things to consider when you are involved in e-commerce as a retailer or seller. And we're going to talk about some of those and answer your questions as well. So this slide here is really interesting to me. It's no surprise that if you see here, along the bottom axis there are quarters from starting in 2001, going all the way up to 2022. You can see a steep spike in e-commerce trends starting right around 2019, 2020. Of course, we know what happened then, COVID. But since 2020, since 2019, the market for e-commerce has nearly doubled in size and is at about 1.2 trillion right now. And I see it only growing. Very interesting. Tennessee did not experience a huge decrease in revenues when COVID hit. Of course, if you live here in Tennessee, we don't have an income tax here, But sales tax is where about 60%, over 60% of our state revenue comes from, which is why I think that it didn't suffer too much when COVID hit because everybody was stuck at home and ordering online, right? That's my theory, at least. So, point here being that it affects a lot of people and it's only going to continue to grow. So, I mentioned that there are not a whole lot of special considerations for businesses involved in e-commerce, but we're going to talk here for a minute about registering for tax accounts, specifically here if you're based in Tennessee. Now, this goes for whether you are selling from a storefront or whether you are selling online. For sales tax, if you have $4,800 a year in sales of tangible personal property, which we will refer to as TPP, or $1,200 a year in sales of taxable services, then you'll need to register for sales tax. Now, we're not going to go too deep into a lot of the exceptions to this right now. Actually, we're not going to go deep at all into that. We've got lots of great resources, though, if you want more information about which services are subject to sales tax, what items of tangible personal property may not be subject, who is exempt, such things such as that. We have great resources. Our sales tax manual is fantastic. Thomas's audit division, they put that together and published it just a few months ago, the sales tax manual. We have some previous webinars on this topic as well. So, but just generally speaking here, registration is required if you fit those that criteria. For business tax, which is a tax on gross receipts for a business. Business is located in Tennessee with a physical location here in Tennessee, and now that means whether you have a storefront or if you're just an online business only, if you are based here in Tennessee, you're going to need business tax. It's required for businesses with over 10,000 in gross receipts and also that have a standard business license. You'll be on the hook for business tax there. For a business that is based solely online, you are going to register using the address where the business is based, like I just mentioned. So these are both location-based tax types. Franchise and excise tax is not. So for sales tax and business tax, if you have a physical storefront and you also make sales online, your location, all your sales that are made online will be put on your location return for your physical location. If you are only online, like I said, you can use your address where your business is based, and it must be a physical location. You cannot use a PO box, unfortunately, for these location-based taxes. You can have a PO box be your mailing address, but just not the actual official location address. We're not going to talk here, as you can see, we don't mention anything about franchise and excise tax or any of the other tax types. For F&E, you're going to need to register for F&E if you are registered with as an LLC or a corporation or registered with our Secretary of State here in Tennessee, regardless of any sales quotas, thresholds. If you're registered to do business in Tennessee, you'll need F&E. And there aren't a whole lot of notable considerations for online businesses, online-based businesses with regards to F&E. There's some miscellaneous taxes that may apply to some online businesses. For example, if you sell alcohol or tobacco online, then you would definitely need tax types, need to register for taxes that are relevant there. And again, you can find more information about that on our website and our manuals and on some previous webinars that we have as well. So for businesses not based in Tennessee, I noticed on our registration report, we have a lot of businesses that are located, a lot of attendees today that are located all across the country and world. Right here, we're gonna focus kind of on telling you about sales tax. So remote sellers are going to need to register for sales tax if an economic nexus threshold of $100,000 or more per year is met. The rate that they pay is going to be based on the rate of the jurisdiction where the products are delivered in Tennessee. Now, this is something that's kind of been different over the past couple years. As you may be aware, in 2018, there was a Supreme Court case. It was Wayfair versus South Dakota that pretty much changed the entire landscape of how this works across the country. for online, for sales, specifically, especially online retailers, if you're selling something that is going to be delivered into another state, you're going to need to take that state's sales tax laws into consideration. And at that point in 2018 is when the threshold for economic nexus was lowered to $100,000 plus a year. Previously, it was higher than that. Just so you know, too, there are other activities that may result in having nexus in Tennessee other than that economic nexus. For businesses not based in Tennessee, you may have a warehouse here, some other kind of physical presence. Um, For business tax, you may have employees based here. There's lots of things to consider when it comes to Nexus. I do want to call to your attention that just, was it last month or the month before, I believe, I think it was our September webinar, was about Nexus for out-of-state businesses. And you can check that out on our website. Also, lots of good information in our manuals as well. But we do have an important notice that is important notice from 7 of 2020. You can see the link there. If you have the PDF open, you can link directly over to that important notice as well. So I mentioned that we weren't going to go into too much detail about sales tax and business tax today because we have lots of great resources, but this is just a kind of a one slide of a basic, very basic general overview of both of these in case you are not very familiar with sales tax and business tax in Tennessee. Again, more information on our website, but in a nutshell here, sales tax, it's due monthly on the 20th. There are some special situations where you can work with the department to get set up as a quarterly or annually filer, but typically it's due monthly on the 20th. It's a tax on the sale of most tangible personal property and certain very specific listed services that our law lists out. So most things and some services. It is remitted by the business. It's most often collected from the purchaser at the time of the sale. A business does not have to collect it from the customer, but it must remit sales tax to the Department of Revenue based on the sales of taxable products and services. The rates, the state rate for sales tax is 7% generally. There are some special rates, such as on food. There is a local rate, so it's going to be the state rate plus the local rate. The local rate is going to depend on the jurisdiction. There are some exemptions. Exemptions can be based on what the product is. Some products are exempt. Some purchasers are exempt, such as retailers. If you're buying something if you're a retailer and you're buying a product that you're planning on reselling, of course, that product you'll be able to purchase that product without paying sales tax because you're going to charge it on the other side, right? There are certain entities that are exempt as well, nonprofits, government agencies. Some exemptions are based on the usage of the product. There are also some deductions and credits. Business tax in a nutshell, it is due annually on the 15th day of the 4th month after the fiscal year end for a calendar year fiscal year end business. That looks a lot like April 15th, which is the tax day most of us have in our heads. It is a tax that is on gross receipts of sales of tangible personal property and services. It is paid by the business, and that rate is going to depend on classification of the business. It also depends on whether the business is a retailer or a wholesaler. There are some exempt entities and some services are exempt from business tax, and also there are some deductions and credits. So just a brief overview there, since we're going to carry on talking a little bit more about sales tax and business tax, so you have some basic general knowledge there. So the most common deduction for online businesses, and this is for both business tax and sales tax, is it's called a deduction for interstate commerce, sales in interstate commerce. So for Tennessee-based businesses, there is a deduction for sales where possession takes place outside of Tennessee. Common example here, especially for online businesses, is it's shipped to the buyer. So if you've got a storefront in Tennessee and a person from Georgia, I live in Chattanooga, right on the Georgia line here. Person from Georgia comes into your physical storefront and buys an item and walks away with that item. they're going to pay Tennessee sales tax, same as if you go into any state and purchase it on site and walk away with it. But here in Tennessee, if the purchaser takes possession of the item outside of Tennessee, so if it's going to be shipped to them, again, specifically with online businesses, that's the case, there is a deduction. For sales tax, you're going to include that sale in your gross sales on line 1, and then the sales where the item is where possession does take place outside of Tennessee, you're going to deduct that on Schedule A of the sales tax return. For business tax, again, you're going to include it on the sales, gross sales and gross receipts on line 1, and then deduct the sales and interstate commerce out on Schedule B. Just a common deduction there that we wanted to call to your attention that is relevant to most online retailers in e-commerce. All right. Something we're going to focus a lot on here today is online marketplaces. They are huge now. You've got Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Walmart is now an online marketplace. You've got online marketplaces for short-term rentals like Airbnb and VRBO. You've got food delivery services that are considered online marketplaces like Uber Eats. What is an online marketplace? So basically there's two players here. You've got marketplace facilitators and marketplace sellers. A definition here, a marketplace facilitator is a person or business that owns or operates a website or other platform. Today we're going to be talking about websites though, where sales are made on behalf of other sellers, of marketplace sellers or third parties. And a marketplace seller is selling goods or services through a marketplace that's operated, owned, or controlled by a facilitator. So let's break this down here. We're going to talk about tax effects on marketplace facilitators and then how marketplace sellers are affected. Marketplace facilitators that make or facilitate $100,000 or more in sales to Tennessee customers in the previous 12-month period are required to collect and remit Tennessee sales tax. So the tax is collected on sales made by the marketplace sellers to the Tennessee customers. Important to note here that the facilitators that don't have at least 100,000 in total sales do not have a collection responsibility, but they may still collect tax, may still collect that sales tax. It's important to, if you're a seller, a marketplace seller, to make sure you understand before you get involved in a marketplace facilitator or an online marketplace, make sure you know, are they going to be collecting the sales tax on those sales made through their website or not? Most of the big ones, all the big ones that you know of, the common ones we just mentioned, are big enough and have enough sales that they will be collecting the sales tax for you. For business tax purposes, in the blue box at the bottom of this slide, marketplace facilitators should only include commissions or third-party fees in sales of their own goods or services in their gross receipts for business tax purposes. So for sales tax, that marketplace facilitator, if it meets this threshold, or even if they don't and decide to collect and remit the sales tax for the sellers, they're going to put that on their sales tax return. They're going to remit the sales tax for the sellers. Business tax wise, not the case. They're just going to report their commissions or any fees that they make. The seller, and we'll talk about that here in a minute when we talk about sellers, the sellers for business tax purposes are going to put their income and gross receipts on their business tax return. Okay, so moving on here to marketplace sellers. Marketplace sellers that make any sales outside of a marketplace facilitator, whether it be a website or a physical marketplace facilitator, such as through their own website or through local craft shows, for example, they may be required to register for sales tax if they have a physical presence in Tennessee. So if they've got Nexus, or if they have that economic nexus of 100,000 in sales in the state during the previous 12 months. So let's talk about a scenario here. Let's say you are an online seller that has you're on Etsy, you sell on Amazon, you also participate in some craft shows, and you also have your own website that you make sales through. Etsy and Amazon they are going to, for sales facilitated through their website, they're going to report those. They're going to collect sales tax on those and report those over on their sales tax return. The facilitator is. For the sales that you make on your own through your own website, if you did participate in craft shows or had a booth somewhere, those sales you would report on your own sales tax return. A good example here also is people who have short-term rentals and have their short-term rentals on Airbnb or VRBO. In those scenarios, Airbnb and VRBO are going to be collecting the sales tax and remitting it for you. But if you also rent out your vacation rental on your own, then you would need to collect the sales tax on those and remit to the state.
Katie, can I
Marketplace.
interrupt you just real
Yes,
quick?
please do. Yes, sir.
In the chat, we've had several people with this same question. So this is the answer to the question that you have. And what Katie is saying can't be understated. If you are exclusively selling through a marketplace facilitator, then they are taking care of the sales tax part of what you're doing. So you're good there and you don't have to report it. But if you do private sales, you do have to report it. So sometimes people say, well, do I have to register for sales tax if I own a vacation home? Well, this is it's not a one size fits all answer. We have to kind of break that down with you. So understand what Katie is telling you here is not, maybe it's not the same for you. Also, if you sell tangible personal property from that location, you might sell, I don't know, something goofy like food or firewood or something like that. That's taxable, and if that's outside of what's being collected online, you've got to pay sales tax or collect sales tax and remit that to us. Okay. And then one final thing that I just want to comment on real quick, none of this involves business tax. Okay. Online marketplace facilitators don't collect business tax. So you have to register for business tax. Okay. And now I'll be quiet. Thank you very much.
You're right, Billy. That cannot be stated enough, though. It is a little bit confusing. We're talking about two different tax types here: sales tax and business tax. And again, there's not a one size fits all. One of the questions that I know came through that I noticed on your registration forms were, if all of my sales are through a marketplace facilitator, 100% of them, do I even need to register for a sales tax account? Well, at that point, it would just be, if I was you, I would probably want to, because you'd have to register for a sales tax account in order to be able to use a resale certificate and buy your products at without paying sales tax on them, right? Because you're reselling them. If you didn't have a sales tax account, you wouldn't qualify for that. If all your sales were made through a marketplace, though, you would just file 0 on your sales tax return. As simple as that. It take you a couple minutes, less than a couple minutes, take you 60 seconds a month. And that would be an example also of where you could reach out to us and see if you could become maybe an annual filer. But again, no one size fits all for this. The blue box on the bottom of this slide, Billy just mentioned, marketplace sellers should include receipts of sales made through the marketplace facilitator on their business tax return. Again, business tax is a gross receipts tax. It's gross income. So if you are a marketplace seller and you made $100,000, or let's say $50,000 this year, even if all of those sales, and now we're talking gross receipts. If you had gross receipts of 50,000, even if those sales were through the marketplace facilitator, 50,000 is what you would put as gross receipts on your line 1 of your business tax return.
Hey, Katie, can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes.
I just want to add that we are talking about e-commerce today, but also remember that a marketplace facilitator could be a storefront as well. It doesn't have to be just online. Where we run into this and audit a lot is a lot of boutiques that sell for other people, where they sell soaps or candles or different things like that. So remember, just because it's not online, you still fall under that marketplace facilitator. So you need to keep that in mind if you're going to sell products for other people.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Thomas. Like that, I the small town where I'm from, we had one called the mini mall. This was back in the 70s, but maybe it's an antique mall or anywhere where there's a common register, so to speak, those are getting more and more common as well. Though that's a marketplace. So yeah, we are focusing on online marketplaces because we're talking about e-commerce today, but yes, thanks for bringing that up, Thomas. A marketplace is a marketplace, whether it's online or a physical location. Anywhere where the facilitator is the one collecting the, where you're paying through a facilitator. All right, because we're talking about e-commerce and online sales right now, we have to talk about digital products, right? So on this slide, it's about the sale, lease, and licensing and use of digital products. In Tennessee state law, there are specified digital products, specifically listed digital products that are taxed at that state rate of 7%, but then have a standard local rate of 2.5%. It's not, that local rate's not going to be based on the jurisdiction where the digital product is delivered or used. There's a standard local rate, and it's 2.5. Products that are considered specified digital products are digital audio visual works, digital audio works, and digital books. We do have a great webinar specifically just about specified digital products. If you want more information on that, we go into great detail about what is considered a specified digital product and then other digital products as well. Just so you know, here at the bottom of this slide, because this was kind of confusing to me when I first tried to understand it, a sale of a specified digital product occurs if the purchaser receives the electronically transferred digital property at a Tennessee location. Okay, so that's what defines it as being qualifying for needing to be taxed here in Tennessee. All right, so that takes care of most of the aspects of online e-commerce, online selling. I'm going to take you on a quick little field trip here over to our website just to show you where a lot of the resources are that I've talked about, and then we'll bring Thomas and Billy in here to talk through and discuss a lot of your questions that you've got. So let me go over to my web browser. Okay, you should be seeing the Department of Revenue's homepage here. I'm going to blow it up just a little bit for you. Here we go. So this is tn.gov/revenue. The first place I'm going to take you is, you've already been there because if you registered for today's webinar, you had to go there, but I've been talking a lot about our previous webinars. I'm going to show you where you can find those. You're going to, from our homepage, scroll down to taxpayer education and then click on tax webinars. Here at the top, that's where you registered for today's and where you may have gone to click on our PDF. But down at the bottom here, you'll see a webinar video library. Business tax, we've got, this was a good webinar that was on details about filing the business tax return. We've got a ton of sales tax webinars. Specifically here, I know we've got one on completing the sales tax return. We talked about services that are subject to sales tax. We've got a really good webinar specifically about that. Reporting out-of-state sales by delivery destination. That might be something that's very relevant for many of you on this webinar today. Using resale certificates. Oops, I didn't mean to go all the way back there. Tax webinars. The webinar about out-of-state Nexus is right here. Nexus for out-of-state businesses. So helpful, hopefully might be a helpful resource for you there. I'm going to go back to our home page, Revenue's homepage here, and show you where those tax manuals are that I mentioned. They're buried just a little bit, but I sometimes wish they were more prevalent because they are so awesome. I use them here internally. Our whole staff uses these tax manuals every day. So I clicked on tax resources. All right, scroll down a little bit. Under legal resources, you'll see a heading for tax manuals. And then once you're there, you can click the drop down for any one of these tax manuals here. Specifically, let's go to the sales tax manual. the drop down there. The most recent version is always going to be prominent here, and you can click on previous versions as well. I'm just going to go into it for just a brief second here before we move along. The internet's going kind of slow today. So you can see here, it's a 350-page PDF document. At the beginning, there's a great table of contents where you can click directly over to topics. But if you want to search, just like with anything online, you could just click Control F. That Control F, and then just type in any particular word. And I've clicked on the word online. You can see there are 28 instances of the word online here in this guide, and you can just go all the way through it to see what to search that way. One more place I'm going to take you to on our website is Revenue Help. Actually, two places. I lied. For basic tax information, because like I said, we just touched on the very, very basics of business tax and sales tax today. But for details, you can either click on the drop down of taxes here or click on the tile. I'm going to go to the drop down here and business tax. I've been talking so much, but I did see a chat just pop up in front of me a minute ago. Someone said, do I need to register for business tax? Information here about if you want a little bit more information and don't want to dive through the big manual, the basic information is going to be on the tax page here about all of our different taxes. Back to the top to revenues homepage, one more place, Revenue Help. These are frequently asked questions and articles regarding anything and everything Tennessee Department of Revenue. Our online filing, TINTAP, specific taxes here. Look at here, there's one whole section about out-of-state dealers, marketplace facilitators, and marketplace sellers. So I'm going to click on marketplace sellers here. You can see there are 11 articles specifically dealing with questions. These are articles very specific to just marketplace sellers there. So some resources there for you. Another place to show you, we mentioned at the beginning, if you want to email us, it's revenue.support@tn.gov. But also, if you're in our help section here in Revenue Help and you can't find the answer you're looking for, you can also click Submit a Request right here, and that sends a ticket over to our support staff in the same way as if you emailed us. So just kind of a quick way to get into there without having to leave our website and then open up your email. Just send us a quick question that way as well. So let me go back over to the PowerPoint, and Thomas and Billy, bring y'all in here to let's talk about what everybody's been asking about.
Well, we don't have that much time, Katie, quite honestly. I wish we did, but
Lots of
some
questions, huh?
very interesting questions. You guys are listening. That much we do know. So we're very grateful for your feedback and all that kind of stuff. So Thomas, is there anything in chat or in the previous questions that were submitted that kind of hit you that you'd like to point out in addition to what Katie covered?
I'm scrolling back through the chats.
All right.
The biggest thing to remember for people that are smaller, that are not marketplace facilitators, that are selling through, eBay, Amazon, Etsy, different places like that, you need to pay attention to, are they collecting the sales tax or are you collecting the sales tax? That's the biggest question that you need to ask yourself. It's not, unfortunately, this is not a one size fits all. We, like what I call it, an audit, we get to play 20 questions. And you have to figure out where you fall into that. So just make sure that you pay attention. You read the policies that you're signing with these other websites that you're shopping on or that you're selling on. I know Shopify got brought up. So you just have to pay attention to what you're responsible for versus what they're responsible for.
Mm-hmm. One thing too, Thomas, that comes up in my mind too, occasionally we'll get people that have questions about, hey, I put my grandmother's vase on the eBay and to sell it for, do I owe taxes on that? So can you talk about the concept of casual and isolated as it relates to that?
Yeah. So there is a section in sales tax that's called isolated and casual sales. And that applies to, if you have a yard sale or if you only sell a particular item one time. Say you have you're a manufacturer or you have a large piece of equipment that you You're done using it, so you want to sell it. So you sell it. Well, that one time you don't have to charge the sales tax because you're not in the business of selling, CNC machines or forklifts. But if you're in the business of selling candles, you need to collect the sales tax on it according to the jurisdiction that you're in or that you're selling to. But occasional and isolated sales are one time sales that will never occur again. So if you're having a yard sale, that's fine, as long as you don't repeatedly have a yard sale every weekend. We probably aren't gonna come knocking on your door and talking to you. But um, Different things like that. Now, the only time occasional and isolated sales do not apply is when you sell a car, a boat, or an airplane. Those are the only three times that rule is out the door and it never applies.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Excuse me, because when you go to the county clerk to register that motor vehicle or that boat, they're going to consider the sales tax obligations at that point. And as it relates to aircraft, we have a special form on our website that is required of the buyer and seller, and that all goes through our audit division. A special unit handles aircraft, and certainly there's contact information actually on that form if that ever applies to you guys. So that's excellent information. I was just looking at this, and Katie, refresh my memory. Did we talk about occupancy tax in here at all?
No, we didn't touch on that during
Okay,
today's.
just real quick on occupancy tax. The online marketplace facilitators, the Airbnbs and the Verbos of the world, and people like that, they are collecting occupancy taxes on their rentals. Okay. So everything that comes through their platform is being collected and distributed back to Tennessee. And we hand that money back to local governments. And that's the local government occupancy tax on hotel and motel rooms, cabins, etc. Okay. So that's how that works. But if you are not, if you're renting yourself, and you're not going through that platform, then you do need to reach out to your local governments, your counties, and your cities out there where your properties are located, and ensure that you're remitting the local occupancy tax to them. Because besides these marketplace facilitators that send these in to us, the Department of Revenue does not handle occupancy tax. It's not our tax. It is a local tax, but we do work with these local governments because Tennessee state law a couple of years ago changed this to allow us the opportunity to help them with the larger marketplace facilitators. Okay.
Billy, I just want to add, I just saw a comment come up about RVs.
All right.
Campgrounds that are non residential campgrounds. So your weekenders, people that come and stay for a week, less than 90 days, those fall under the same classifications as hotels and motels. So they have to file the business tax. They have to file for the occupancy tax. They have to charge the sales tax on the campgrounds. They do fall under hotel motel tax.
Okay. Great. Very good. Thank you for pointing that out.
Billy, one thing
Um,
I wanted to mention real
yeah,
quick is
go
talking
ahead.
about these online marketplaces and people that decide to start selling. I know a lot of people may just start dabbling in it. Maybe they're finding good deals on things and decide that, well, let me just see, I bought this for $10 and it's worth 100. Let me see if I can sell it. At the point where it becomes where it's a business is when you reach those thresholds that we talked about early on here. If you're making 4,800 a year, then yeah, you're going to need to register for sales tax, for business tax. If you are making gross receipts of over 10,000 a year, you're going to need a standard business license. We didn't talk about this today, but if you have between 3 and 10,000 in gross receipts, you would just need what they call at this point a minimal business license, and you wouldn't need to pay business tax or register for business tax. But I think a lot of people are just dabbling there with online marketplaces and online selling being a huge deal. I have a friend that does a lot of shopping at Goodwill and finds really awesome stuff, and then puts it on eBay, puts it on Facebook Marketplace, stuff like that. Now, my daughter is selling her fish tank right now on Marketplace that she's bought, and then she started college and the fish died. And anyways, is she going to have to charge sales tax on that? No. That's
Tom,
what Thomas was saying.
Thomas,
That's
do you
casual.
do you have her down for audit? Do you have Katie's daughter down for audit on that
Yeah,
fish tank?
we're just let her know we'll be there next week.
Okay. You know
I
where I
love it.
live, right?
Yeah.
I
But
love it.
that's
I love it.
casual, right? But if she were to start, she's young, she's got an entrepreneurial mind. If she were to start making a hat, starting to really sell and meet those thresholds that require registration for sales tax or business tax at that point. And that's where, like Thomas was talking about, find out. I'm not sure exactly. You know what? I don't know how Facebook Market. I do a lot of shopping on there, kind of window shopping on Facebook Marketplace, but at what point, I don't know what their agreement is. There are some people that I think treat it like, that are sellers that are probably, don't know, Thomas, you may know how that works with Facebook Marketplace, but where probably they've reached that point where Facebook Marketplace may be the facilitator in terms of collecting sales tax. I'm not sure. That's where the seller, you do need to check and see, is sales tax being collected? Is it required, and is it being collected by that facilitator?
Yeah, great point too. So here's the point that I want to make that comes up every single solitary workday at our place. We get people that will say, "Hey, I registered for sales tax. I registered for business tax." And I quote, never did anything with that. And now you have sent me 1, 2, 10 notices of delinquency or whatever. Here's the thing, guys, super important. When you register for any of Tennessee's taxes, any one of them, you're on the list of expectations to file and pay. Okay. So even if you don't have any sales that are subject to tax, we have to get your sales tax return on the frequency that you're registered for. Most of you would be monthly. Some of you would be quarterly. A very few people are on annual. But regardless of what that is, we have to get your sales tax return. We do not have a crystal ball. We do not know what you sold or didn't sell until you tell us. Okay. So, super duper important to always file a return, even if you don't owe us anything. Very easy to do on our 10 tap system, that sort of thing. If you get a delinquency notice that says, hey, you didn't file a return, guess what you should do? Here it is, file a return. That's how you get out of it. So when you do that, the assessment goes away. And then, yes, we would have to charge a minimum penalty, usually $15 for late returns and that sort of thing. And you can actually ask for a penalty waiver on 10 tap if that ever happens to you as well. But if you ever get deep into that situation and you need some help with it, make sure to call us. You see our phone number on here, you email us, whichever you want to do. Let us help you through that. No, we do not want you to pay multiple thousands of dollars of assessments. That's not the point. We really don't want it. What we need are filed returns and required payments. That's what we really need. Okay. So, super important to remember too. And Katie, this might be a good time for a little advertisement for what's going on in a couple of weeks here with you and I and a few others on our new business workshop. And we do have that coming up. I think it's on January 4th. Am I saying that right, Katie, or do you
I think
remember?
so. I'm going to go over there real quick.
Okay. Yeah, we
Make
want you
sure.
guys to sign up if you're new into business and you want to know some more details. This will be a little longer presentation than what we're doing today, but we can get you going on this. Yeah, January 4th, right? And we would love for you to attend and get a little deeper on this stuff, so you can kind of start the new year of 2023 off on the right foot, that kind of thing. So
If you've attended
anyway,
one of these new business workshops in the past, just so you know, we are changing things up, and next month's new business workshop is going to be completely revamped. So new information and organized kind of in a different way. So
right, exactly. Thank you. Are there any other comments that any of our speakers want to talk about? Thomas, do you have anything else you want to bring up?
Just a few things. A
Sure.
lot of people are asking questions about should I get a CPA or an accountant? how do I do this? Billy explained it all right there. I recommend going to that new business workshop to find out what you need to do to register with the department. Now, the department will not give you business strategies or give you legal advice on how to incorporate or if you should create an LLC. We can't legally do that. And but I recommend that you go to the new business workshop, find out what you need to do as a business, because just because your friend Joe down the street is running a business, it's probably different than the business you're running or your intentions of the business. So I recommend doing that. Do your research. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, you can reach out to a CPA and do that. I deal with people all the time that use CPAs or that don't use CPAs. It's based on your comfort level and your understanding of how you do business and different things like that.
I'd like to just say what Thomas just said is probably the most important thing that's been said this entire during this whole presentation. So critical to get started on the right foot and to do what's best for you, because what's best for you is best for you. It's not best for your friend or somebody else that works in the industry or whatever. Not everyone needs that LLC, but a lot of people do. But we're going to guide you. We're going to tell you what they are. We're going to tell you about this kind of thing in the new business workshops. So you'll have at least a bare bones piece of information that you can go with, and then you can make your decision. But I highly encourage you, just one step beyond what Thomas was saying, is if you look at stuff online, when you see organizations that want to pull you into certain products that they wish to sell you and get you involved with helping you start a business and things of that nature. I would encourage you to be very skeptical of that and to not click on things that you don't understand. Okay. And I don't mean that in any mean way or upsetting way, anything like that. What I mean to say is that it's so super important not to go down a rabbit hole that you don't need to go down. For instance, setting up an LLC and you didn't need an LLC, getting out of that LLC is difficult and hard, and there's money involved for the state. So, even if you didn't do anything with it, you have cost yourself a pile of money and a lot of time. Okay. So, don't want to push you away from that sort of thing. I just want to warn you about it. So, thank you very much, Thomas, for those comments too. Katie, anything else from your perspective that we might want to touch on?
Uh, well, there's probably a lot more we could talk about and a lot of questions that we
Yeah.
got, but we are reaching the top of the hour here. I want to make sure people do know that they can reach out to us if we didn't get to your question,
Hmm.
or if it was maybe account specific. Or later on, you come up with some more questions as you're doing your research. As you see here, our revenue.support@tn.gov. We answer those very quickly. A lot of people prefer that route because you can get an answer from us in writing. You can always call our general call center. I don't have the hours on here, but 615-253-0600. And
I can
that's
tell you the hours: 8 to
tell us the
4:30,
hours.
8 to 4:30 Central Time, Monday through Friday, excluding holidays. And here's something weird: if you call our government phone number, you know what will happen?
You get a
Instead of
person,
going through our menu, you'll get to a live human being, and you'll talk to somebody that can help you.
right?
And we do answer the phone, and we answer it very quickly. Now, don't try us on April 15th unless you want to wait for a minute, but that's typical. But anyway, we're good, and we're very, very happy to help you guys out.
We have one more commercial for the new business workshop. There's some people asking, how do I sign up for that? Wonderful.
I'm going to take you back over to our website one more time just to show you again how I
Dan, we
navigated
could give
over
your
there.
personal cell phone number out and let them call you if you'd like. But
Yeah.
I think this
Okay.
might be a better choice here. What Katie's going to show them.
All right. So you see my browser. I'm on tn.gov/revenue. I'm going to scroll down to taxpayer education, which is also where you went to register for today's webinar. You clicked on tax webinars. That's where our webinar video library is as well. But for the new business workshop, you're going to click on new business workshops. that tile. And then you can see here, we've already got our new business workshop for next month up here to register for it. It's January 4th. It's a pretty long event, 8:30 to 11:30 Central Time. We touch mainly on business tax, sales tax, and F&E and resources. But here's where you would register for the event. You just click on register for the event and get registered right there. And it's a similar process to what you went through to register for today's webinar.
Oh, and by the way, this is free. How about
Yes,
that?
free.
Some of you have asked about the CPE credits and things of that nature. No, we do not offer CPE credits currently. It may be something that we do in the future. We have not done that in the past, but anyway, we offer all of our presentations as general information for the general public to use, and we hope it's very helpful to you. So with that, unless there's any other comments, I guess we can wrap up. Oh, look. Katie's got something she put up here. Hey, you want a job? How about you put in for it? How about you join us? How about that? We do have some positions available. Many of them are work from home. So if
And
you're
these are position numbers, not salaries. There's always confusion
yeah,
with the numbers in black there. Those are position numbers, FYI.
yes. Don't think those black numbers are the amount of money that is being offered, but still.
And follow us. These are the links to follow us. We
Oh
recommend
yes.
you want to stay up to date on events that we have and important notices that the department puts out, press releases, that kind of thing. Please follow us. I recommend this for any business or CPAs, accountants. Do this if you're on any of these platforms. And one more plug too, real quick. Please take just a second, fill out a quick survey as you're exiting today's event. It helps us to be able to cater these events to you in the future. There's a blank feedback section where you can give us ideas for how we can make these better. And especially what we like is to hear what you would like us to do future webinars on. Give us your ideas, what you want to hear about, what you want to learn about. We do this every month. It's the last Tuesday of the month. Next month, last Tuesday of the month is tobacco taxes. So that's our
And
December
we have
webinar.
webinars planned pretty much through most of next year already. So we're going to try to touch on things and bring up things that we haven't talked about yet. So yeah, it's great.
Well, thank you all so much for being with us today. Thanks to Dan and Stephanie for manning the chat, and Thomas, really enjoyed working with you this month on this webinar, and thanks for your expertise and your assistance. Billy, I guess I'll say thanks to you too. You are my boss. I need to.
Hey, that's very important. Thank you, Katie. and Thomas again, Stephanie, Dan also. Thank you. Thanks everybody for this. And thanks to all of you for joining us. It's busy. It's the time of year where we don't have a lot of extra time with the holidays coming up and that. So thanks for taking time to spend a little bit of time talking about your taxes this morning with us.
All right. We'll see y'all next month, hopefully. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.